Here's a bit of practice advice I have been repeating to my students lately. Don't bite off more than you can chew. And I'll tell you what I see students doing that prompts me to say this. They'll be learning a piece of music. Progress is slow. There is marginal improvement from one week to the next. I ask them, already knowing the answer, how are you practicing the piece? And they'll say, I just keep trying to play it, or I'm just trying to get through it without stopping, or I play until I mess up and start over. If any of that sounds like you, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong or that you're making a mistake, because if you're having fun, then you don't need to change your ways. But if you want to see noticeable and continual improvement, then I will tell you that what you're doing is suboptimal. I often think back to something I heard my former teacher, Jim Piorkowski, ask a student during a recital seminar. Have you ever eaten an entire pizza by yourself? And the student sheepishly went, yeah, who amongst us hasn't, right? And Jim said, when you did that, did you take the whole pie and shove it in your mouth? One slice at a time. Or better yet, one bite of one slice at a time. When you are practicing a piece of music and you keep trying to run it start to finish, you are biting off more than you can chew. You're glossing over finer details. You're not addressing mistakes. You're not listening as deeply and intently to all the moments of the music that you are trying to bring to a performable state. It's like if you always drive through the main drag of the town you live in but never get out of the car. At best, you get a passers-by view of everything. And then what you present to the audience is a distilled version of that. So I am going to show you how I apply this idea in my own practice. Lately, I've been working on the Gigue from the First Lute Suite by Bach. I played this whole suite in my undergrad, and I never really got it to a place I was totally happy with. It felt like I was always playing at the edge of my ability, especially with the Gigue, which is the final and most difficult movement. A Gigue is a fast and lively compound meter dance, so it could be in 3/8 time or 6/8. This one is in 12/8. The rhythm is pretty much continuous 16th notes. It's very contrapuntal, very dense, very active. You're always on the move. As of right now, I can play it quite comfortably at a moderate tempo, but I want to be able to play it really fast, like it's supposed to be. Fast and clean. I don't want it sloppy. My benchmark is the tempo John Williams took on his 1971 album of the 4 Bach lute suites, which is about 60 to the dotted quarter note or 180 to the 8th note. And to get there, I'm gradually building up my tempo over time. Most recently, I was at 132 to the 8th note. I basically isolate one measure at a time. I'll start with the first one. And I'll freeze right there. What I just landed on is the first attack of measure 2. That's important. When you're isolating a chunk of music, the last thing you play in it needs to be the first thing of the next chunk of music. What I see a lot of students do is stop at the bar line and then pick up in the next measure. If you do that, the likely result is that we can hear the bar lines when you play the piece because you keep pausing when you get to them. If you land on the first thing after the bar line, you're chaining 2 chunks of music together and avoiding that problem entirely. So, here's what I'll do. One. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 7 times in a row, no mistakes. Once I achieve that, I move on to measure 2, rinse and repeat. Why do it this way? First of all, by practicing one measure at a time, I'm not biting off more than I can chew. I'm giving myself the space to focus on all the little details it contains and repeatedly engage with them, address the problems, apply solutions, and so on. If I were to keep playing onward in the music, I would be spreading myself too thin to give the proper attention to everything that needs it. I would be shoving the whole pizza in my mouth. Now, you don't necessarily need to go one measure at a time in every piece you practice. You could do 2 or 4 at a time, maybe a whole phrase, but it should be some discernible musical unit, and it should not be more than you can chew. I mainly go 1 measure at a time with this piece because there's a lot going on in every measure, and there's hardly an easy moment in the piece. So for me, it warrants that level of granularity. You also don't need to start at the beginning every time. It's a good idea to start at the last measure, for instance, and work your way backwards through the piece. Not playing in reverse, just moving your starting point back. You can start somewhere in the middle. It's good to mix it up. Second of all, why strive to play each practice chunk 7 times in a row perfectly? This is a thing in neuroscience that I've picked up in passing from various sources. The exact number varies. I've heard 5, 7, 10 maybe. But the idea is that if you can perform an action, we'll say 7 times in a row perfectly, you basically have it down. If you keep going past that, there are diminishing returns, and in that moment, it's probably better to shift your focus to the next task. What you don't want to do is play it, mess it up, 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 play it, get it right, celebrate, and then move on. Because you have just practiced it wrong 5 times and 1 time correctly. So when you go to play it again tomorrow, are you more likely to mess it up or get it right? I have been guilty of practicing that way in the past. I'm sure you have too. 7 times in a row almost ensures that you're nailing it more than you're messing it up. If you can't even nail it twice in a row without messing up 10 times in between, then you're going too fast and you need to slow it down. As I once heard the fingerstyle guitarist Joe Robinson say, play it as slow as you need to in order to play it perfectly every time. Sometimes I'll be a little more lenient on the 7 times thing. Like instead of starting all over for each mistake, I'll instead subtract 1 from the tally. That means for each mistake, that's 1 extra time I have to play it correctly. So I'd still be playing it right more than I'm playing it wrong. One of my students came up with this practice game where he puts out a stack of 7 quarters, and for each successful repetition, he moves a quarter to another stack. Each time he messes up, he moves 1 back, and he tries to move all 7 over. The other benefit to this is that it forces you to focus more time on the extra troublesome spots in the music. If one practice chunk is easier, you'll be spending less overall time trying to nail it 7 times in a row than you will on the parts that are more difficult. And as you do this, you need to be very present and attentive with the task at hand. Are you producing a good and consistent tone? Are you playing with good dynamics? Is every note coming out clearly with no thuds or buzzes? Is everything in time? Are you using your intended fingerings? Are there moments that you're not landing consistently? What could fix those problems? Try not to sweep anything under the rug. Once I finish going through a whole section of music this way, I'll usually give it a few playthroughs, still at the same tempo, to see how it runs. And more often than not, it's cake. It's also a good idea to start your practice with a run-through of the piece and then go into the granular practice, because what we're ultimately training is skill retrieval. The real test of our practice effectiveness is how well we can play it on the first attempt. In a performance, you only get 1 attempt. So I hope this gives you some ideas to apply to your own practice. Of course, there are loads of other techniques and strategies you can apply. If you want to dig deep, my aforementioned former teacher Jim and I made a whole video series several months ago where we talked about his tools for productive practicing, which I highly recommend checking out. You can find that on my YouTube channel. That's all I have for you for now. I'm planning on making more videos like this in the future, so if you want to see those when they come out, you know what to do. I'm Alex Rockwell. Happy practicing.